Okay, I'd like to step through our project for this week just to make sure that we're all aware of the process and what we're doing. This week we're using GarageBand to sequence our own material using MIDI. So you're going to create a 32 bar project consisting of two 16 bar sections. You will use loops and patterns to compose your sections, but you're going to sequence your own rhythm track using the grid approach to a 404 timeline that we discussed in week 9. And you're going to loop your sequences for 16 bars each. Then you're going to create another and then loop that for 16 bars. And you're going to accompany your loops that you've made with some that are from the Apple Loops library. And I'm going to ask you to make another sequenced layer. It doesn't have to be complex, but you're going to create your own layers that will accompany each section. So for each there's two sections to the piece, each 16 bars long, one of which is your drum sequence, one of which is your other sequence that you're making with another instrument, and then two Apple instruments that you can load into from the Loops library, excuse me. I'm also asking you to add effects to at least two instruments in each section. And then you share your song to disk and upload it to the Dropbox. So let's go ahead and get started here. If you open GarageBand and you have your MIDI controller hooked up to it, which it should be on, you choose an empty project. You go to Software Instrument. And I would start with the drum. So I would go with Electric Drum Kit. And like we did in class, we were looking at the 808. So the Boutique 808 is a good place to start. And you notice that as you play the keys on the keyboard, you'll get a different sound with each key press. That's because the keys have been mapped to each individual sound. So once you've got that loaded, you can go to the E, you hit the E button or the scissors, it's your editor, right? And that's going to show you your piano roll editor for your sequence. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to turn loop on by clicking up here in the timeline and selecting only one bar. Make sure it's exactly one bar, otherwise you get kind of screwed up. So make sure it's one bar and lower your tempo to something that is a little bit less fast. So let's say 90 or 85 or something like that. Then you hit record and you'll hear your metronome give you the tempo. And you'll also see it cycle through. So there's two ways in which you can record onto this. You can play your sounds into the sequence loop, or you can click. So I'll talk it through both of these. To click, you hit the command button, and if you hold down the command key, your cursor turns into a pencil and allows you to click into your timeline. So let me make this bigger so we can see it. Right? So you get the pencil tool out, and then you can click into your assignment here. Yeah, let me make that an actual snare drum. Okay, and when you click assign, everything's quantized for you. Remember in class we talked about time quantization, which is really important when you're doing a MIDI sequence. The other way to do it is to play it in. And after I play in a layer, I'll also talk about how to quantize stuff you've already established in there. So if it's recording, I'm going to do 16th notes on the hi-hat here. So notice how terrible that is with rhythm. So I played that in and it's still recording. So I'm going to select all down here, select all this stuff. And the time quantized box down here is really useful. You go down here and you go to 16th note, and it should pop it right into your, here we go. Let me stop this for a second. If you select all of your notes and hit the time quantize Q button, it'll pop it into alignment. You'll see the difference if I undo and redo it. Sounds much better, right? If I want this to be an open hi-hat on the downbeat, I can select a different note. I can move these notes around. If I want two downbeats, two bass drums on the third beat, right? So you basically have control over what you're sequencing. And you can edit and so on. Okay, so that's how you build a beat in this way. I think it's sometimes easier to click it in if you're not too comfortable playing the keys, but there's two ways to do it, and you'll find what works for you. Once you've built that first rhythm, you can go and just sort of make it loop for 16 measures. And then at measure 17, you're going to create a new one. So if you want to use a different instrument, you'll need a new track, but you can definitely use the same one here. You're going to go down to your sequence down here, and you're going to find the loop for that region, and you can then do the process over again by making a new loop at measure 17 and then looping that out. But I really recommend starting with one measure loops. It's a much simpler way to make this all go, right? Make a one measure pattern and then loop it outward. Same for the other instruments. So if you add another, like let's say you add a track, that's going to be an instrument, software instrument is what you select. And let's do a synthesizer bass. So I recommend using a synthesizer sound. It's a little bit more interesting, I think, that way. It doesn't have to be a one measure loop. It can be a two measure loop if you'd like. So let me try that as a loop. So if I select the track, if I double click on the region I make, I can see it down here in the timeline. So that isn't the same, and I can edit it. So your other layers don't have to be complex. They don't have to be complicated. They can just be simple bass lines or beats. The last part for this assignment is for you to, of course, incorporate Apple loops, and we've already covered that in other projects. But if you hit the B key, you get to the effects. Remember, that's the dial up here at the top, or the letter B on your keyboard. You go down here to plugins, and you can select whatever plugins you like. I'm going to go to stereo delay for my drums, and select a 16th note delay for my drums. And for my bass line, I can turn on tape delay. Makes it sound a little bit more cool, maybe. Right. So we've got some new options. If you add like a reverb, or it changes the sound completely. So explore all of these effects that you have available. Explore the instruments. But essentially, I'm looking for a sequenced bass line, or I recommend a sequenced bass line, a sequenced drum pattern for sure, with effects on both, and then some Apple loops to throw in as well to round it out. And so I've done basically one half of the assignment, and then you basically do the rest with 17 to 32 in the same manner. You do have freedom over how you arrange your song. If you don't have to have these layers going continuously through each section, but I do want you to loop out and create your own layers. So if you have any questions, always let me know. Thanks.